Are you thinking about buying new construction in Florida? Learn everything you need to know in this episode of the Just Us League of Real Estate.
All right, hello everybody. This is Matt Miller with LPT Realty out of New Smyrna Beach on the fun coast of Florida. And today we are covering our podcast topics of new construction. And I have along a couple of my cohorts here. Go ahead.
I'm Toni Gambill on the Gulf Coast of Florida.
William Dailey here, also part of the fun coast of Florida, and we are the Just Us League of Realtors. And today we are going to be talking about
new construction and the process of new construction. It's a booming topic here in Florida. Lots of great opportunities for buyers out there, but you are going to want to go through it with a realtor. And so we're going to touch on some topics there and what's going to work and what these builders are offering for incentives right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so new construction obviously is, different all over the regions that we have. And depending on what builder you're using, those can be inconsistent, right? Like what incentives they offer and even what materials they use to build your homes. So it is important to use a local realtor that is a specialist and knowing the market. And part of that market is always going to be the builders and new constructions that we have here. So with that being said, I'll start with just saying, what do you guys believe is like the most important thing to consider when buying new construction? I'll say that for me, one of the things that I would say is knowing the quality of the construction that the builders offer, right? And I usually think that getting a buyer in the home so that they can actually see, breathe, touch, the whole element of being in that new construction quality really speaks volumes. How thick the doors are, the types of cabinets, the casing they use, the whole nine, right? Aesthetically to the building construction. So what do you guys think when considering new construction? What's the first thing that jumps out of your mind, Matt, that says, this is why I like new construction?
There's a couple things. One is most of your new construction, actually all of your new construction is going to have some sort of warranty with it. So for somebody that's coming in and maybe being a first-time home buyer, doesn't really understand what's involved with owning a home, the things that can break, the problems that you can have, you're pretty much covered. Most of these builders offer a good, at least 1 year, everything warranty, and then there'll be additional structural for 5-10 years, depending on the builder. But also, one of the big things that I think people need to look at is their needs versus availability and construction time and the reputation of the builder to meet that construction time. So a lot of the times they'll say, this home's going to be ready. It's in stage 2. It'll be ready in 4 months. Well, do they really get their stage 2 homes done in 4 months, or is it going to be at 12 months? And then you've got the interest rate problems were you locked in? Probably not. Can you still afford it depending on what rates do? So there's a lot to consider with new construction. Especially in this market. And that's why it's great to have a realtor and a preferred lender of the realtor along, really, to at least give you advice along the way. A lot of the times they will ask you to use their preferred lender for some of the concessions, but everything's negotiable. So.
It is. And that's interesting that you bring that up because, you got to ask yourself when you're a buyer out there, if you're listening to this, why are they trying to keep you all inclusive to themselves, right? And I'm not saying that these builders are doing anything shady or dirty or anything like that, but there are things like Matt kind of was just touching on, that a realtor that wants your best interest wholeheartedly, who usually is working for you outside of these builders, are going to make you aware of things like the real projected build time and how that does affect your monthly payment or interest rate. So, Toni, what about you? What do you think the first thing that jumps out is for a probable buyer to consider new construction?
Yeah, so you definitely, as a buyer, you definitely want to bring your own realtor to the game. So many times you'll see a buyer go through a model home and then they'll want to sign with the builder, and maybe there's an agent somewhere that's been showing them properties and they sort of get cut out at that point. But who do you have looking out for your best interest? It is not the builder's agent. So you need your own agent who's going to speak for you and stand up for you when they need to, who understands how to deal with the other agent and with the builder to get you what has been promised to you.
And even so, to add on to that, you need to do this from the jump. So soon as you want to think new construction,
good point.
Don't walk into one of the model homes without your realtor, because they can lock you out, and they will lock out you having the ability to someone represent your best interest. And a lot of people don't get that. And you're using a realtor as a buyer for free. So you're not paying anything for the service of a buyer's agent, whereas the seller, they want everything to work for themselves, where they can control both sides of it, and it's not really in your best interest.
And that's right. I mean, you definitely want to make sure that the buyer understands the seller pays the commission here in Florida for sure. So they're paying for the buyer's agent to bring the buyer to them. So with that being said, I will say also, like, new construction is not always the easiest to navigate. One of the experiences I had was like a change in the construction that my buyer thought they agreed upon. And we had to walk the buyer through the agreed upon contract to show where basically gave builders rights to make certain changes as long as they weren't structural. And in this case, the buyer had a bathroom change in their master bathroom. And it went from a bathtub being in the master bathroom to just basically one big stand up, creating a lot more room in that bathroom, giving it kind of a feel that the buyer wasn't really thrilled about. So we had to go back and forth. And ultimately we got the builder to revert that change and put it back to what was originally agreed upon. But what do you guys think some of the experiences you had that you see go wrong, even with a realtor involved, that you knew that the realtor was the important piece at that point to engage? You got any other stories like that, Matt?
Yeah, I definitely have one. It was a new construction build. It was going to be a long build time, 8 to 10 months. And they were very specific on what they wanted. And the plans called for a 10 by 10 patio. And their outdoor life was important to them. Moving to Florida from a colder region, it was important that they had the space. So as they're moving along and they lay the foundation and they put the patio in, we realize it's not a 10 by 10, it's an 8 by 8.
Oh.
But when you look through the contract, there is some language in there that's, I guess, gray area as to the builder can make any changes they want, and you've already signed up for it. So to make a long story short, it helped to have an attorney involved who represented the client for free and got them out of that deal because of the change in the contract, got all their escrow money back, which was $23,000 that they had on the line that they could have lost. And that's something that if they would have gone into this just using the builder, they would have been stuck either taking the property as it is with the smaller patio, or they would have lost their $23,000. So that's just one instance in new construction where if you didn't have a realtor working on your side, you're going to run into issues. So.
Yes. I had a property in Oklahoma, actually a buyer that bought a spec home. And the home was not completed. It didn't have flooring in. It didn't have appliances yet, no countertops or any of that at the time when we went under contract. And it was supposed to be completed within the next 30 days. Well, the builder, I don't know why, but he decided he did not want to put appliances in. He didn't think he should have to do that since they signed the contract prior to him getting the appliances in. And their loan required that they have appliances. So I had to go back and really fight that builder, which it did not make sense to me. I didn't understand why he was unwilling to budge on putting in the appliances that were written into the contract, that were agreed upon. But I had to go and pretty well take him the contract and say, look, the appliances are here. You signed it. You agreed to it. Give them their appliances. And that was just one issue we had with that builder. There were several others as well.
Right. Yeah. And that's the great thing, is just knowing the builder's background a little bit and kind of anticipating of what a buyer can experience in a building process. But with all that being said, we got the horror stories out of the way. let's kind of dive into a little bit of a better light on the new construction, because it is a super valuable investment in my opinion. And I totally support buying new construction. And, some of the incentives, like Matt mentioned earlier, can get really, really good. And one of the incentives that I just experienced recently was a locked-in rate, which was very low. I believe the person got 4.2%. It was a really low rate in this current market. But not only that, they got back, I want to say $20,000 in concession to use for their closing costs. And that really helped this buyer. And at that point, the only thing they were responsible for was their down payment. And it made it very affordable. So these builders, they want to stay on track for their track building and make sure that they're closing the deals that they anticipate for their development. So, Toni, what have you seen recently that are some of the more impressive incentives the builders are giving in your market?
Yes. So I actually just received an email yesterday for some incentives. There's a builder that's giving $10,000 in closing costs to the buyers here. And if they work with their lender, and they're getting some pretty impressive interest rates here as well with this particular builder.
Yeah, I'm finding the same thing in New Smyrna. There's several builders still offering $15,000 in closing costs with a lower rate off of a buy down, basically, that they're putting the cost towards. And that's something that we'll cover in another podcast. So make sure you subscribe and listen, because we will cover buy downs and what's going on in the mortgage market too in a future podcast. But yeah, there's definitely some opportunity out there with the new construction, great incentives. And if you're a realtor, get involved with your local builders because there's bonus commissions that are being paid. So, I mean, that's a bonus as a realtor in the market with new construction, that you are going to have to usually wait on build times in a longer period, but there's some opportunity out there. And it's all of them. I mean, when we talk builders in Florida, some of the popular ones are D.R. Horton, Lennar, who else? Those two came to mind. Miranda Homes.
Coulter, Ryan, Adley. I mean, the list goes on. KB, they all, at some point are offering great incentives. Locally, ICI
Homes, and they got some custom stuff that you can choose. Yes.
Yep.
So.
And that's a great point too. Matt's bringing up right now the customization that people usually want to put on these new construction homes. And I think we're all familiar that there's only certain builders that actually do that, especially coming out of the recent COVID era, the recent COVID era that had the lack of the materials that we were all experiencing in construction. Really put a hurt on the market, but also changed the dynamic of what these builders even allow people to pick or choose. And I see it coming back a little bit slowly now, but at one point, I mean, it was basically, you couldn't pick nothing. And with a custom home, it's always going to be more money, obviously, because of the word custom, right? It's going to be less for more. But what do you guys think about like the cost of what these new construction homes are? You seeing it coming back as far as that customization? Do you think it makes it a better process with giving less options, or tell me your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are really the base models with what they provide. A lot of the times you can go in and customize yourself maybe before you move in. And I think you can
at a cheaper cost,
you can customize things yourself versus the prices that they charge, because you can get tied up in going to their design center and starting to pick this, that, and the other, and the higher ceilings and the crown moldings. And before you know it, you've added $100,000 to the price of your home. So there's a lot of things you can do yourself or with a general contractor, handyman, that, you may not need them to do. So that's where you really want to also, have a realtor to help price out what things would cost if you did it on your own versus if you have it when it's time to move in. So what about you, Toni?
Yes, absolutely. Here in my market, some of the builders that notoriously were doing a lot of custom features in their spec homes, they've kind of stopped doing that as much here because of other builders like Lennar, let's say, or DR Horton coming in and their base models, you know, are just kind of taking over, and the price points are so much lower and people are really gravitating toward those with the mindset of doing what you suggested and making those changes themselves to save themselves money. So I do see that here as well.
And even with customization, it's still limited. The builder is only going to offer what they offer to customize your home, whereas if you buy it at a cheaper price point, you're now open to the world of customization on your own, which, you know, a lot of people, I think these days like the DIY approach, right? Especially when you got things like Pinterest.
The DIY?
DIY? Do it yourself?
DIY.
Do yourself inside. Yeah, that's it. The DIY. There you go. I'm not good with letters. So I will say, all in all, though, would you guys agree with the statement that new construction should probably be one of the first things to consider when looking to buy a home?
I would definitely say new construction is the way to go, especially if you're not having to move right away, or if you may have a contingency to sell your current home and you're looking to get into something different.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, having a home that no one else has lived in, I love that idea. So absolutely.
With a warranty.
And if you're listening to this and you're interested in new construction in any of the markets that we service, make sure that you get in this description. Click on any of our links. That's going to bring you right to our new construction page. We would love to help you out when looking to buy new construction in our markets. But we are the Just Us League of Realtors. Thank you very much for listening to our podcast today. Don't forget to subscribe to it so you can get all of our future episodes. And we look forward to seeing you or hearing you or having you listen to us on the next one. You guys have a good day.
Have a good one.